Well, should be okay. I think we're live on YouTube as well. If you are
Yeah,
on the we
I'm
are.
watching.
Okay, good. Let us know how the audio is. People in the live chat. Hi everyone. I think
Okay,
if
it's not live for me right now. I'm not seeing it.
it's live.
Oh,
This
there it
is
is. Now
yeah.
it's live.
Okay, okay. Okay, let's get started then.
Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi, and with me is Armin Navabi. First of all, Happy New Year. This is the first show that we're recording this year, and a lot is going on while the show's happening. The topic, what we're going to talk about, is what everybody else is talking about, is what's happening in Iran, specifically what's happening with the U.S. and Iran, and all of the conflicts that have been started. So basically, first of all, so a quick recap. Uh, a little while ago, an Iranian-backed Iraqi militia attacked the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. The U.S. Later retaliated by drone bombing and killing a top Iranian military general right outside Baghdad airport. This is Qasem Soleimani. You've seen him in the news a lot. He was killed. He is the head of the Al Quds division of the IRGC, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Iranian military organization. And as we speak, while just before we kind of went on here and we started this show, Iran has launched about a dozen missiles, a dozen rockets into two U.S. Bases, housing a lot of U.S. soldiers uh, in Iraq. So that's where we are right now. The news is constantly coming out. There's been a lot of false reports coming out and retracted. So we're trying to keep track of it.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have Armin Navabi and Armin Navabi. Armin, for those of you who don't know, who haven't heard us before, Armin grew up in Tehran. He's very close to the events in Iran. He constantly hears from his many contacts in Iran that he hears from all the time. And his Twitter, I'll say right now, is Armin Navabi. It's at Armin Navabi. It's ARMINNAVABI. So you can follow him because he's going to keep on talking about this and giving you the latest on this as well.
So just
So Armin,
just keep in mind though, anything we talk about is based on the latest that we getting at. Like, we didn't know, we scheduled the show for today. Today is what, January 8th, and right before we went live on air, these missile attacks from Iran against U.S. bases in United States happened. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about now might change in the next few hours and next few days. So the video version is is happening right now, but the audio version might come a little bit later. Some of the details might change. We're gonna have more live stream on the Iran-U.S. Conflict. So if anything more information comes out, we're gonna address those later. But just keep in mind that we're just dealing with really fast changing news right now. Okay. Uh,
as it happens, yeah.
right.
So first of all, Armin, is there's obviously a lot of hyperbole out there, but is it hyperbole? I mean, I know there's a lot of people talking about World War III,
Oh
but
yeah, that's
is
nonsense.
there a war that's going to happen? Can either of these sides, can the U.S. or Iran, can they afford a war? Is it something that they want? I think they've both stated that they don't really want a war, but at the same time, they are motivated by they have to. They're attacking each other. They're retaliating. The cycle of violence is continuing, and right now it's really, really intense. So, is there
So,
going to be a war?
well, there's a dilemma. First of all, World War Three is not going to happen. Like, I can't believe
Yeah.
like some people are suggesting that, oh, Iran and China and Russia are going to be on one side and United States on one side. Like, what? Who like are you guys? I don't know. Like, even some people that I follow and respect are like Kyle Kalinske was suggesting there's going to be World War Three. No, okay. Russia and China are not going to go to war with the United States over Iran. Are you serious? Okay, so that's not going to happen. That's definitely an exaggeration. But the war, a full-out war between the United States and Iran, it is. I don't. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna try not to exaggerate. It's still less than 50%, but it's the highest it has ever been. In the past 30 years, the likelihood of it happening has never been this high. But still, still below 50%. I think. I would have given you a different answer just a few hours ago, because just a few hours ago, the report that was coming out was that the missiles hit a U.S. base, and 20-something Americans were killed. And I was just on live stream with Apostate Prophet discussing this. I could not understand this. That fake news that just maybe this new recent one is fake news, because now the update is that, which makes a lot more sense to me, that the Iranian government can't somehow let the American government know that they were going to attack the base. And again, this is just the latest version of the news. This might change as well, so that the Americans can pull out, so that no Americans die, so that it doesn't escalate to a full-out war, right?
So they want de-escalation.
Both sides want de-escalation. Here's the dilemma that both sides are facing right now is both sides want to make sure that they don't look weak. Both sides, they want to show that they responded to an attack, and both sides don't want a full-out war. And these two contradict each other. How can you respond strongly while allowing the other side to not respond and giving them the excuse to go to their people and say we were the winners? Both sides want to allow the other side to be able to say, like, oh, we won, we responded, we were the stronger one, while they can do the same thing to their people. And these two positions are contradictory, right? Because if you respond, the other side has to respond as well, or else they're going to look pathetic and weak, right?
Right. So I want to read, and I just want to confirm what I heard, because it actually sounds really bizarre. So Donald Trump just tweeted about 51 minutes ago. Okay, this is what he wrote. I'm going to read it out. He said, "All is well. Missiles launched from Iran at 2 military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualties and damages taking place now. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and well-equipped military anywhere in the world by far. I will be making a statement tomorrow morning." So he's going to make a statement tomorrow morning. By the time this airs on iTunes, this is probably going to be history. But you're saying that there's reports that the Iranians let the U.S. know when they were going to send out the missiles?
Yeah. So here's the thing. This is going to look pathetic from Iran's part, because Iran's government's part. I have to say Iran government. Because
once that news comes out, it looks pretty
terrible. Because like they have to come out and be like, we were strong. We showed them. We defeated the Americans. But if the reports are true, again, we don't know if these reports are true. It hasn't been confirmed yet, right? But if the reports are true, that they let the Americans know to get out so that they could give the Americans an excuse not to retaliate, then they're gonna look like they're just talk and no action. Like, because you have to understand, like, let's give some context to people on how we got here. Okay, I don't know how far back we should go. An American, I don't know how many days ago was this, but an American contractor was killed, civilian contractor in Iraq, by one of the Iranian proxy groups in Iraq, right? And just so people understand, the government in Iraq is an Iranian puppet, and we said this many times before, and some people think that we were exaggerating. But then so many things happened that showed after that we were not exaggerating at all. Three things showed that we were not exaggerating. First, the CIA report that came out. Second, I'll tell you what the second one is. So the contractor was killed, and then the United States responded by attacking, bombing some Iranian proxy groups in Iraq, killing a whole bunch of top officers in that proxy group. And then Iran's government responded by getting its proxy groups to protest the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. And this is what the second clue that the Iraqi government is a puppet of Iran's government happened at that day, because this is the most secure embassy in the world. This place was like a fortress that nothing could get in and out without going through heavy security. Like, Americans working at this embassy in Baghdad felt extremely safe. Okay. But all of a sudden, when Iran's government wanted to protest against the United States for killing its proxy officers, all the security stood down so that the protesters could come in. Like, imagine how vulnerable the Americans felt in that embassy.
Oh wow!
Right?
Yeah.
So that means that the Iraqi government was on Iran's government's side, and all that security there was like nothing, like just stood down, and the protesters just made it right came. Wow. Like there was a glass wall between them and all the protesters. Like that's.
I'm saying that this is
right.
this actually shouldn't even be that surprising, because I mean the whole time when the U.S. went into Iraq for the Iraq invasion, I mean, one of the whole ideas was that you're going to remove the Sunni dictatorial leadership, which is Saddam Hussein, and then suddenly it's going to be a democracy, and then the 65% Shia population is going to come in power, and then Iran is over 90% Shia, and they're going to be more aligned, right? So the whole idea was that the Iraq War itself benefited
it's not
Iran.
It's not just that they're Shia. Iran's government has been working on growing its roots inside Iraq for the past 30 years. Even when Saddam was on, like the bad army and all of that, it was always there. They had
the Iraq-Iran war.
Yeah, it was always there. But then when Saddam fell, they managed to use all these networks, and every person and all the people in the government of Iraq is handpicked by Iran. Okay, this is not an exaggeration. And again,
no, that was like Bush's. It was the gift. The Iraq War was essentially a gift to Iran.
Right. So then what happened
massively,
after that?
And we're seeing that now, and now it's actually. What you're seeing right now is a clear manifestation of that.
Right. So what happened after that?
It's undeniable.
Then United States, again, this is something that I don't criticize Trump for this one. I criticize Trump. Again, I'm going to sound like a Trump apologist, but I'm not. I call both Obama and Trump war criminals for their support of Saudi Arabia for what they did in Yemen. So I'm not
Yemen.
I'm not a Trump supporter. I think he's a war criminal that needs to be tried for his war crimes, okay? But the response to the attack on the embassy of United States needed to be extremely strong. Think about this. Iran's government has attacked Aramco, which is in Saudi Arabia, which is a U.S. ally, had attacked ships from many different countries in the Persian Gulf. They took down a U.S. drone, shot down a U.S. drone. None of that saw a response by United States. And Trump was like tweeting, talking like, oh, we're going to do this. And they never responded to the Islamic Republic. Again, I'm trying not to say Iran, because a lot of people from Iran are going to say, don't mix us with the government. Don't say we respond to Iran, because we're not part of its government. We have to say Iran's government or the Islamic Republic. So every time I say Iran, I shouldn't say Iran. I should say Iran's government, okay? So none of that saw a response, and the Iranian government always was saying like, "Oh, look, Americans will do nothing. They're weak. They're pathetic. We own this area. This is our neighborhood. They don't belong here, and they will not do anything." But then, if the attack on embassy went without a response, that would prove their point, because remember, United States embassy in Baghdad, that's U.S. soil. An embassy in another country is part of your country, and that, so this was an attack on U.S. soil. And this time Trump also came out and he said it's going to be a strong response, and the Iranian government, they thought like, yeah, sure, you always say that, you're not going to do everything. And
he said that months ago. He actually said that he tweeted a long time that we're going to respond like very strongly. So it's not like he didn't.
But nothing happened to those. But he respond this time when he said that we're gonna have a strong response, because there were other actions by Iran's governments didn't see a response. The expectation was this was also a bluff. So I think the Iranian government was shocked by the taking out of the top general, right? The Qasem Soleimani. But I don't know if people understand how significant this was. Qasem Soleimani wasn't just a top general. He was, it's not an exaggeration to say he was the second top influential person in Iran. Only second to the supreme leader. A lot of people think Rouhani, the president, is powerful. The president is nothing. He's just a puppet. He's just a pawn. He has no control over anything. Nothing he can do without the supreme leader's permission. And everything else is just for show. This is why democracy in Iran is just a show. It's just, so this guy was most of the foreign policy around the Middle East. He wasn't just a general. He also came up with plans. Let me tell you how significant Soleimani was. The whole point of the Islamic Revolution, the point of the 1979 Islamic Revolution by Khomeini was not an Iranian revolution. It was supposed to be an Islamic revolution that was supposed to take the entire Islamic world, at least the Shia parts of the Islamic world, right? And Khomeini hated the idea of Iran. People get shocked when I say this, but it's true. He hated nationalism, okay? He had to, the Iran-Iraq war forced him to use nationalism a bit because Iranians are very nationalistic, have a lot of nationalist tendency. But he hated that idea. His revolution was not an Iranian revolution. Islam above Iran. Okay, that was what Khomeini's idea. It wasn't, the Islamic revolution was not meant to end at the borders of Iran. He was supposed to become a pope-like figure, like a religious leader for all Muslims. And he died, and that dream never came true. But after Khamenei seems to be making that dream slowly come true. The Shia empire was spreading all around the Middle East. The influence of Iran's Shia empire was taking dominance in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria,
Assad,
in Yemen,
support,
in hopefully for them in Bahrain, and also in the Shia part of Saudi Arabia, which has been Saudi Arabia's nightmare for the past 40 years because
the eastern part.
The eastern part, which is the oil-rich part of Saudi Arabia, and
by the way, not just the Shia places, but also in Palestine.
Right.
Hamas, like working with Hamas.
No, that's not part. That's a different narrative. That's a different narrative, okay? Because they use a different narrative with the Sunni areas. With the Shia areas, they use the Shia narrative, and all of this has been made possible because of one man, which is Qasem Soleimani. Qasem Soleimani was the person that was making the vision of the Islamic Republic come true. That's why they call him the sword of Khamenei. He's making what the vision of Khomeini was come true. It's not an exaggeration to say he was responsible for many things that changed the history, like a lot of pivotal moments in the Middle East, the Kurdish independence, the defeat of ISIS, Assad staying in power happened because of Qasem Soleimani. This is not an exaggeration. This man changed history in many, many places. And this guy,
including actually the stuff that what you talked about with the attack on Aramco, the attack on all of those are all the attacks against the U.S. Right. We're also all orchestrated by Qasem Soleimani directly. And
a lot of people were introduced by him to him in the last few days to Qasem Soleimani, but to Iranian people, he was either extremely hated or loved. Right? There's not that many people that were in the middle with this guy. Right? Most Iranians either love this guy or hate his guts. Okay. And whoever tells you it's one more than the other, they have no idea what they're talking about because there's no reliable numbers on these, okay? And both sides try to represent their side as bigger, right? What was surprising, okay, so this guy was taken out, okay? And this was, when the news came that this guy was taken out, I thought I was dreaming or something. And I thought that I knew that this is one of those moments that you see on the news that you're going to be talking about for the next couple of decades, right? Like this is one of those moments that when he was taken out, it's going to be one of those moments that you refer to as before this event and after this event. Like, you know how you talk about 9/11, like you say before 9/11, after 9/11, post 9/11. I know this was one of those moments that triggers something like that in history, right?
I got to interrupt you. There's been an update. So what you said about the U.S. Military knowing. So I'm seeing this around 11 minutes ago. This update. That a U.S. official is saying that the military had early warning of the missile attack.
Right.
So what you were saying is correct. Well, I mean, they don't say where they got the warning from, but it says a U.S. military official has told CNN, this is from CNN, that the military did have enough early warning of the ballistic missile attack on air bases in Iraq to sound the alarm. People in harm's way were able to get to bunkers in time. So that's that's an actual confirmation. Not sure. They're not saying where the warning came from, but I mean, you're saying that it actually came from the Iranians themselves,
right?
Or we just don't know.
That's yet. That would make more sense to me. Let me tell you why. Okay, so then they took out Soleimani. Okay, Qasem Soleimani. They took him out, and we knew that the reaction had to be strong. Okay, because this is why this is why it didn't make sense to me. When I was, right before this live stream, I was on another live stream with the Apostate Prophet, and we both went on, and this news was breaking in while we were on air. And what happened was the news that we were getting was like a couple of Americans were killed, like 20-something Americans were killed. And that made absolutely no sense to me because the IRGC, no matter how evil they are, the Islamic Republic, Revolutionary Guard, they're extremely strategic. Okay, they have. I mean, sometimes they make some blunders that they were pushed in that they couldn't. They had no choice to. But they are usually more strategic than this. I couldn't believe that they would take 20 Americans out like that because that would be suicidal, right? Because if they took out the base and 20 Americans were killed, like the United States would have to respond with a direct attack on Iranian soil. Like, I can't imagine how they wouldn't. And that would be just all-out war. And that would be suicidal for Iran. But my assumption was that they would respond in a way that would be extremely strong, but not strong enough to invite a full-on direct war with the United States. I assume both sides are avoiding a full-out war with the United States. So I couldn't make sense of why they would kill 20 Americans or something like that, right? My prediction on Atheist Republic a couple of days ago was that the best response, the most strategic response by Iran's government would be to pressure the Iraqi parliament to remove the permission from United States for them to have their troops in Iraq, right? And that would be devastating for United States. It wouldn't be devastating for United States people. It would just be devastating for the plans of United States government. It would be great for United States people because it will save a lot of money. But it would be devastating for their plans. And Iran could come out winning from this. Iran's government, could come out winning in this and be like, look, our retaliation, we didn't even have to attack them. They shot themselves in the foot. They gave us the winning hand. They put we retaliate them by making them fully give Iraq to us. And imagine if they are successful at this, if Iraqi government, again, this is going to be hard for Iraqi government to do because right now they don't even have a government. They have like a temporary government. So even if they want to kick United States completely out, it's going to take a long time for them to first have a new government. But it seemed like my prediction was right. The parliament came in. They had a unanimous vote to kick out United States. We don't know how, but the problem with that unanimous vote was the Kurds and Sunnis were not there. This was there were only the Shias there, and they unanimously voted. This showed to me how influential, again, another proof of how influential Iran's government is on Iraqi government, right? So this was the third proof that we were never, like long before we were saying this, we were not exaggerating. Again, the CIA leaked way after we told you how much control Iran's government has over Iraqi government. The second one that proved we were right was the security standing down when the protesters moved towards the embassy, and this vote. Okay, and I don't know how symbolic is this vote, because the Kurds and the Sunnis probably are not as eager as the Shias to see United States pull out, because if United States pull out and Iran comes back with full control over Iraqi government, even more control that it has right now, that's going to again, that's the recipe for ISIS-like groups coming back. Okay, because when the Shias controlled Iraq before, they weren't very nice to the Sunni civilians. You know, the Shia, the militia groups, which are the proxy groups of Iran, they go out ISIS hunting. But when they go out ISIS hunting, they're actually going out Sunni hunting with the excuse that they're ISIS hunting, right? So they kill a lot of Sunni civilians with the accusation of, well, they're ISIS. You know, you have to understand, like if you look at the Shia proxies in Iraq, they look at when they are attacking ISIS, they don't have the songs that they sing or the slogans that they have or the stuff that they write on the missiles, they're not anti-ISIS. They're anti-Sunni, all right? All Sunnis, not just ISIS, right? Like they consider all of the Sunnis as part of Al-Qaeda, and they see them as part of the same group, right? So like they see the messages is against Abu Bakr and people that love Aisha and people that betrayed Ali. We're going to take the revenge for the killing of Hussein, the people that are against Hussein. So they're talking about all of the Sunni people, and the Sunni people in Iraq, they see this, they know this, right? So that's why a lot of them are terrified about United States pulling out, right? So but a lot of people, but again, so some people in Iraq, here's the thing that most people are not asking, right? A lot of people are asking what Iran wants in the region. A lot of people are asking what United States wants in the region. And again, both United States and Iran's government, again, I said Iran, I should say Iran government, they love ISIS because they're both using ISIS as an excuse to stay there. If ISIS is not there, and their agenda, they say they're there to destroy terrorist groups, but they both are lying. United States is in Iraq not for ISIS. United States is in Iraq to stop Iran's influence. And Iran's government is also lying. They're not there to defeat ISIS. They want ISIS to be there a little bit so that they could tell people in the world that we're there to defeat ISIS, but they're there to spread their Shia empire, okay? That their agenda is both different, okay? But so this is what the agenda of Iran's government is, and this is what the agenda of U.S. government is. But the question that most people are not asking is, what do the Iraqi wants? Because their country has turned into a playground, a battleground, a chessboard between two, powers fighting against each other, and they're just watching these people like ruining their country. And they're like, some people in Iraq are saying like, oh, Iran should stay, United States should go out. And some people in Iraq are saying, oh, United States should stay and Iraq should get out. And some people in Iraq are saying, maybe you should both get the hell out of our country and just let us rule our own country. Like, we don't have our own government. Iraqis are saying we don't have our own government. You guys are just picking and you're playing with our politics like it's your playground. Maybe just everybody should get the hell out of here and just let us elect a country, our own government. But the problem with that is that a lot of people say they're not ready to defend themselves against another ISIS type Sunnis trying to take revenge against the Shias. And again, if U.S. pulls out and Iran doesn't pull out, that's exactly the recipe for another sectarian group because Sunnis are going to now be angry against the Shia dominance. But the problem is, if United States pulls out, Iraqi government has all the legal means to kick out Americans, but they don't have any legal means to kick out Iranians. You know why? Because the Iranians don't even use their own citizens to be in Iraq. They have Iraqi citizens that are loyal to Iran. So to Iran's government. So how can you kick out Iraqi citizens? That's their country, right? So this is why it's really harder to get for Iraqi government to get, even if they wanted to get rid of Iran's influence, they can't. These are the citizens, Iraqi citizens, that are loyal to Velayat Faqih back in Tehran. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you the question about this. So Donald Trump's tweet where he said all is well and we've got the best military and all that. It seems to totally contrast with the other sort of saber rattling stuff he's been saying in the past. So does that mean that he's potentially, this is the first question, he's potentially accepting this thing of de-escalation, that he's kind of accepting, okay, no people were killed, yeah, they attacked the bases, but no American soldiers have died, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to de-escalate? Is that a reasonable way to interpret it? The second thing I wanted to say was that Javad Zarif, he also had a tweet just before Trump's where he said the foreign minister of Iran, yeah, he's Mohammad Javad Zarif. So he said Iran took and concluded proportionate measures in self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter, targeting base from which the cowardly armed attack against our citizens and senior officials were launched.
Yeah.
So he said that. So it seems like, does it feel to you like they're both ready to accept de-escalation?
They were both okay. Both of these groups don't want a war. Again, a lot of people keep saying that Trump wants a war for re-election. I don't think so. Okay, I don't think Trump wanted a war. His base is different from other Republicans. Okay, Trump's base doesn't like war. Okay, Trump is not. Like people will keep looking at Bush and the fact that he got reelected because of a war, and people think like, okay, it seems like it's a recipe for getting reelected. Trump's base is different from Bush's bases. Bush's base
and
is
actually,
yeah.
Let me add something. This is actually a really important point to understand. So there was this whole idea that when Bill Clinton, when he was impeached with the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, he launched those 2 cruise missiles into Africa to get Al Qaeda and to target Bin Laden. And that was a distraction. Yes, there's an element. It's possible that this is a distraction, but generally, Trump's base, which is something that doesn't really budge, the one thing that has made them really, really get turned off by Trump, his most loyal supporters, in a couple of years ago, was the attack that he did on Syria.
Yes,
after the chemical attack, when he responded, and even though it was a half-assed attack, it was very strategic, not to really cause any issues. It was sort of more ceremonial and symbolic. That really, really upset a lot of his supporters. So any kind of foreign intervention kind of thing that Trump does, I mean, that's one thing that he swore off of. He was he was the odd Republican out, in the sense that when he was running against the other Republicans, he talked about how 9/11 happened on Bush's watch, and how he wants to get rid of these endless forever wars. He's constantly made that his rhetoric, and his base really, really tries to hold him to that. Right. So that's even for political reasons. The idea that he would launch a war for political reasons actually doesn't apply to him, because he basically does what his base wants him to do, and his base does not want to do this.
Yeah, and a lot of people say like, "Oh, Trump's base will just follow him whatever he does." This is one red line. I think that's true with almost everything except this, and we saw that in the, like Ali said, we saw that in the bombing of Assad's bases in Syria. Yeah, we saw that. Like his base, some of his most loyal following turned on him, right? So this is one red line that is unlike the other.
Alex Jones came out and he said, "Can I swear? Can I say the order?"
No, please. YouTube really destroys.
Okay, he said "F Trump" like really, really loud. He actually screamed it. There's a whole video of Alex Jones saying it. So even his most loyal supporters, the people who were totally gaga over him, I don't know if it's enough for them to actually leave his side. I think eventually they'll come around, but it is enough of a risk for him not to do it for political reasons.
It's enough of a risk to say that it's not a re-election strategy for him. Like, even if it doesn't hurt him,
absolutely not.
Even if it doesn't hurt him, it won't help him. Okay, so, but I do think like the whole killing of Soleimani. This is why it's hard for me to say that was uncalled for, because it was very. They attacked the U.S. Embassy, okay? Attack a U.S. Embassy. This there's two things, two the reasons why this was like a deja vu for United States politicians. One, the taking over of United States Embassy 40 years ago in Tehran, right after the 1979 revolution, and the taking of 52 hostages of American personnel in the embassy. Right, that was a huge. That was the beginning of the bad relationships between, like, even after the Islamic Revolution in Iran, there was a chance for this mullah regime to still have some relationships with the United States. It was that taking of the embassy that completely destroyed any possible relationships for 40 years until now, right? And that was one. This is the attack on the embassy in Baghdad. That was a deja vu for some older people, but for some younger people, right, the another deja vu was the Libya experience, right? And this is why Trump was also very sensitive about this, because Trump was like, we failed our ambassador in Benghazi, and under Clinton's management, we didn't protect our citizens, and he died, and he's like, I'm not gonna make the same mistake. Our embassy is attacked. I'm gonna stand strong for our citizens, right? So the thing is that if Iran had done so much in the region without any response from the United States. So the dilemma was, how could we take a very, very strong action against Iran while not going out full military against any of their bases or anything like that, right? So taking out Soleimani seems like a good idea at the time, honestly, right? So again, I'm very critical I'm very, very anti-Trump, but on this, I can't see how many options. What are other options are strong enough against a country that just attacked your embassy, while not?
I think. Yeah, no, sorry. I think that the recalling the whole embassy thing is actually pretty symbolic. I know, because there are people, especially with the Republican base. I mean, these people remember, the older people, they remember that the Iran embassy takeover, right, back during the revolution. And the other thing is, it's even the numbers are sort of symbolic. And this is something that Trump does, is that he said he'd attack 52 cultural centers in Iran.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. There's this lot about that tweet was very significant. Yeah. Yeah,
that was significant. And then the thing is, the 52 was also the number of hostages, right, overall?
Yes. He picked the 52. Exactly. This shows that earlier embassy takeover was on people's mind when they were responding to Iran, because he
wanted it to go. He wanted them to go and think about that as well. That when this embassy thing happened, like he's actually, by using these parallels, and this is one thing in which he is kind of strategic, and this is one thing he is kind of talented in. By using that was you think of that number. You think of that number, and you think of the embassy takeover in Iran from the 70s. So this is. I think that they wanted very deliberately for people to recall that and hold that association and think about how grave and how terrible that situation was, and what a failure it was for the Carter administration at the time as well. So, but let's put that in contrast.
But let's count the steps. Let's see where we are right now. Okay, so you had the earlier plan. You first go a couple of months back. Iran attacking Aramco, taking out the U.S. drone, attacking some ships in the Persian Gulf and around that area, and then we had the taking down of Iran attacking United States civilian by using its proxies. So this is that's when it started escalating, because now we're talking about the U.S. citizen. Okay, that's something the United States doesn't just let go, right? And then United States responded. So that's step one. Step two was the United States responded by taking out some of the top generals of Iranian proxies in Hashd Shabi, or the PMF as the Westerners call it. Again, so we're still not escalating to the point. You have to understand. For the past 30 years, all the attacks between the United States and Iran has been through proxies, okay? Both Iran and United States had a secret understanding, not so secret understanding, but that we won't go to full-out war as long as we use proxies at each other. This is why this was different. Okay, so we're still at proxies. Okay, and we have always been with proxies for the past 30 years between Iran and the United States. Okay, so contracts are taken out. Then generals were some top officers were taken out. Then the response by Iran's government was the embassy attack, and then this is when things escalated. When United States took out Soleimani. Why was this a whole new level of escalation? Is because now we're looking at the United States and Iran's government directly confronting each other. So now you had United States, Soleimani. Soleimani is an Iranian citizen, the highest official that you could possibly take, other than the Khamenei himself. Okay,
Supreme leader
himself. So this was a new level of escalation, because for the first time after 30 years, we're going at U.S. military, Iran's military, not through proxies. Okay, I was watching some people that, some other content creators like David Pacman. He was like saying like, oh, the embassy attack had nothing to do with Iran. These were Iraqi citizens. People are saying it was Iran to make an excuse for war. What are you talking about? Like, you can't believe like somebody like David Pacman would say that, because if you look at all the around 300 terrorist attacks for the past 40 years by Iran's government around the region, less than 6 of them were by Iranian citizens. All of the attacks by Iranian government have like 99% of the attacks by Iranian government have been through citizens of other countries, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, or Iraqis, or Syrians, or Houthis in Yemen, or anywhere else. So of course, like, this was Iran's government's attack on the United States. So, but the attack on the Soleimani again was a new escalation, because now you have U.S. military and Iran's military, right? And then this is where I thought the strategic. Now we're at the point where strategically it made sense for Iran to do this, for Iran to not take a military attack against United States, but this would be such an absolute win for both Trump and Iran's military. How so? Like, this is what I thought would be ideal for both sides, right? By Iran's government pressuring the Iraqi government to make United States pull out completely out of Iraq, Iran could go home and say, look, they shot themselves in the foot. This is the greatest revenge we could have ever taken. They gifted us Iraq completely. They gave us Iraq in a gift bag, in a silver plate, and we won. This was like, they could have used some of their religious rhetoric, like oh, the blood of our martyr Soleimani paid for liberating Iraq, or some nonsense like that, right? But also Trump could go home, and this is what Trump supporters love to do, right? Trump supporters love to say like, oh, Trump plays 3D chess, deep state and stuff, all that nonsense. They could go home and be like, look, Trump always wanted to pull out of Iraq completely, but he couldn't, because he doesn't have full control. It's the deep state that has full control over the United States government. So he wants to pull out of Iraq, but he couldn't. But now he played like 3D chess, and he did this move against Soleimani, and now by making the Iraqi government remove the permission for the United States to pull out of Iraq, the Trump forced the hand of the deep state to pull out of Iraq. And now he achieved his promise that he's going to pull out of Iraq by pulling this trigger. But again, that's nonsense, but that's the kind of nonsense that would sell to Trump supporters, right? But
it would, but the problem is that has consequences. Because the thing is, we're talking about U.S.-Iranian relations, how they're pretty bad, but it's never been this tense. But right now, what's more important, and this is a problem, I'm getting this from an article by Megan O'Sullivan in Foreign Affairs, which is about the U.S.-Iraqi relations, right? So Iraqi parliament votes for, they say, okay, all of the U.S. troops should be kicked out of Iraq. The U.S. has responded by saying that we're going to call sanctions against Iraq if it demands the exit of American forces. Okay, so now you have a problem. If you have tense Iraqi-U.S. relations, and if there's any kind of severing of ties between Iraq and the U.S., then all is lost.
No, but
That's a really bad strategy.
okay, but
no,
no.
but let me finish it. So there's the other thing. The other thing is if you actually remove all of the U.S. presence out of Iraq, and this is something Obama tried to do, right? But it didn't work because when you take that out, then suddenly you have fertile ground for Iran to go nuts because they have a lot of influence in the region. You have fertile ground for ISIS to be reconstituted, like if ISIS can come back together.
Yes.
There's so much other stuff that can happen. So that's another reason. I mean, I'm saying this from the point of view of if you're thinking strategically from American interests,
No.
it doesn't make any sense to actually comply with that. So how do you do that? Last thing, how do you do that? How do you actually keep your interests intact and at the same time keep the Iraqi-U.S. relationship intact?
No, but I wasn't talking.
I mean?
I wasn't okay, but I was talking about two different groups. You're talking about a different group of interests. By the way, we just got a super chat.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay,
I get that, but still,
no, hold on.
Ali,
let me respond. But let me first read the super chat. Super chat by Celestial Nightshade is saying, "How would the Middle East respond if Iran attacked Dubai and Israel?" We'll get to that. Remember that question, okay? Thank you for the super chat. But tell me, Ali. I was talking about different interest groups that you're talking about, okay? Iranian government. Right. This would be if they kicked out U.S. troops out of Iraq, this would be a huge win for Iran's government.
Of course it would.
And again, I was thinking that this could have been a huge win for Trump and his base if they managed to sell that conspiracy theory that this was Trump playing 3D chess and pulling out of Iraq that all his plan. Of course, this would not be a good scenario for Iraq if United States was not there, but Iran remained there, and it would not be a good scenario for, United States strategy in the Middle East, Trump, which is different from Trump and his base, okay? Because
but even of Trump's base, even
because
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I of course,
this is a rare moment. No,
of course,
okay.
Of course,
there's a delay here.
Of course, it would be
if
great.
Trump stays there.
Okay.
There's a delay. I don't know what's going on.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to speak. Okay, so if here's the thing with Trump, yes, in the immediate thing, they'd be like, oh, he pulled out all the troops of Iraq, but that's not sustainable. He sustains that. Eventually, it'll take a matter of how long do you think it'll take before the manifestation of Iran's influence in Iraq becomes like really, really apparent?
Who cares? He just needs to get reelected. Do you think? Okay, Trump and his base. Trump doesn't care about what's going to. No, Trump doesn't care about. Trump doesn't care. I gotta say this.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Trump doesn't care about the long-term consequences to the United States. Trump only cares about re-election, okay? And this would be this would have been because all of that is now out the window with this new attacks, right? But this would have been a narrative that would have been a winning narrative, I think, for him and his base. Yes, strategically, it wouldn't make sense for the United States and its long-term interests if they pulled out of Iraq and Iran stayed there, okay? Iran's government stayed there. Obviously, I agree with you. Right?
Yeah, politically, it would help, and it would be good for him politically in terms of re-election if he was doing this in October 2020. But if he's doing it right now, 11 months before, I think it'll become very, very obvious to his base. Because the thing is, generally, his base is, I'm really sorry, but they're generally very, very uninformed. Okay? So the problem is that they're going to think, later on, they're going to find out. They're like, what? ISIS is reconstituting? Now Iran's taking over.
They don't care. No, they don't care. They don't care. His base doesn't care. His base will say...
His base does care.
No. His base cares if they're involved. If it's
going to be involved. They're going to involve it. They're going to involve the U.S. They're going to involve
if ISIS...
His base cares about ISIS.
I consume a lot of his base's content, okay? If ISIS rises again in Iraq, as long as it's in Iraq, okay, they're like... His base are like, we don't care. That's someone else's problem. Let them bomb each other to forever. Okay, that's what his base will say.
Right.
Anyways, but let me just get back to what's happening. So now
we got another super chat. From Mir Jalal. And Mir Jalal, thank you for the super chat. He's saying it's not that Trump's base is anti-war; they're specifically anti-Assad war. Richard Spencer and Alex Jones said the same in their statements. They said that Trump attacked their friend. I don't think that's completely true, but I think that is a good point.
No.
In the sense that they are
really
taking out ISIS. Trump said we're going to bomb the shit out of ISIS. He said all of this stuff. His base loved it. They're not worried about that kind of intervention.
I will prove you wrong in a few seconds.
Iran, like all of his like hardcore pro-Israel supporters, they're very, very happy about Trump going after Iran. I don't think it's just a matter of just pure foreign intervention. I think
Okay,
it's a matter of
can I prove
what
you
that
wrong?
intervention looks like.
Look, who's the person that mirrored? By the way, thank you for the super chat, right? But you mentioned who? You mentioned Richard Spencer. So when Trump attacked Syria, what did Richard Spencer do? He changed his flag to on Twitter to the Syrian flag. Go look at Richard Spencer's Twitter account. Here, I'll show you right now. Twitter account right now. Look at the flag that Richard Spencer has on his Twitter account right now. It's the Iranian flag. So they're doing the same thing. Look, they're doing the same thing that they did before. Can you see this? Richard Spencer.
No,
there's the Iranian flag between Richard and Spencer. Exactly what they did when Trump attacked. So now Richard Spencer is defending Iran against Trump, just like they did with Syria. So there you go.
But Richard Spencer is his base. It's not the only part of the base.
But I'm
Richard
responding.
Spencer
I know
is
it's
an
not.
outlier.
I know, but our super chat was mentioning Richard Spencer. That's what the response.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, that's fair.
Right.
But I don't want the Richard Spencer thing to derail this.
Right. Okay.
I'm saying in general though, right? Trump did run against ending these forever wars, but he also talked about we got to target Iran, we got to target ISIS. Like these two targets are something that oftentimes his base actually is seems to be okay with. And these are the two things, Iran and ISIS, that will be inevitably strengthened, within weeks, months, if the U.S. withdraws all of its troops from Iraq. So they know that. The problem is, look, Trump is not going to withdraw the troops from Iraq. Doesn't matter how good it looks for him politically. But the thing is that how does he do that, not withdraw troops from Iraq without severing U.S.-Iraqi ties? Because if he does either of those things, if he severs U.S.-Iraqi ties, and if he lets it get worse by threatening them with sanctions, then that increases that also increases Iranian influence in Iraq.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It would be devastating if Iran has full control. I agree with you with that. Yeah. I'm just talking about from Trump's perspective and
Trump's intentions.
But it would be. I was just saying this. If Iran's government manages to, it already has almost full control over the Iraqi government. It has been decreasing a little bit in the past couple of months. But if United States pull out completely, it will be absolute control. And this will be devastating. It will feed not only ISIS-like groups, Sunni, Shia-hating groups will have open range to grow, but they will have not just the vacuum to grow, but also the motivation. There will be a vacuum because the United States will be pulling out, but the motivation because the Shia dominance again, the Shia dominance of Iraq over Sunni people will give the will give the narrative to Sunni groups that they need the defense against the evil Shia people that are dominating over them. Right? This is exactly how ISIS was created. Yeah. Go on. But
I gotta interrupt you again. Because the world is just getting stranger and stranger by the minute. So apparently just right now, a Ukrainian Airlines plane that took off.
No, don't mention that because that seems like a technical stuff.
It's a conspiracy thing. I know.
No, it will confuse. Don't mention that. That will confuse.
Airlines plane.
That's going to confuse people.
In Tehran, shortly.
That has nothing to do with any of this. This is going to confuse people. Okay, so let's go back to the news.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So, I saw that.
There's a conspiracy. Ukraine, Tehran. What's going on? Everything in the news.
Right.
This is not helping. Do you doubt that nobody's gonna look at this? This is like one of those Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself moments.
This is conspiracy fuel.
What timing? I mean, I know this is
right in the middle of all of this. Right in the middle of all this, a Ukrainian plane crashed in Tehran.
Tehran. Okay, there you go.
So this is gonna confuse
someone's gonna have a field day. And this is the first time I actually wish, just for entertainment reasons, that Alex Jones was still on Twitter.
All right, but let's get back because anyway. where were we? Because
let's get back to it. Yeah.
So we were at step what? What step were we? Okay, so this would have been ideal. And I predicted this. And it happened. Iran's government pressured, and it went and I couldn't believe it. Just half a day after I said that, the parliament voted in, and it was beautifully done, strategically done by Iran government. The Kurds and Sunnis boycotted it, and it was a unanimous vote in the parliament. I'm like, wow, what a major win for Iran's government. But then what shocked me was this morning was the news, the fake news, that apparently the fake news, I don't know, we'll see how things change, was that the Iranian government hit the United States military base in Iraq and killed a whole bunch of Americans. Now we know they didn't kill anybody, but the reason why that was so shocking was because why would they do that? That seems to like that was so out of character to me. Like I was speechless. I have no explanation for this because it was so out of character for IRGC. Usually this seemed like such a Trumpian thing to do. It seemed like such an emotional reaction that seemed like suicidal. Like that, if you killed so many American citizens, soldiers, United States will have no choice but to go out on all-out war with Iran, and why Iran will not survive that. This was a scenario that neither Iran's government or United States government would want. So I didn't understand why would that be the news. But now it seems pathetic that they leaked the information, but it makes more sense. That they leaked the information because for the United States to pull out this. But it seems very weak because a lot of I was watching a lot of the funerals in Iran. Like the number of people that showed up in Iran has for the funeral of Soleimani. I've never seen crowds that big in Iran. Like they have outdone all the protests against the government. It seems nothing compared to that. And I know a lot of the people on my side are going to hate this. A lot of Iranians on my side are going to hate this because they say, they're going to tell me, Armin, why are you saying the crowds were big? The crowds were big for the support of Soleimani only because the government of Iran forces people to come out, forces people they're going to lose their job, forces people they're going to do this or do that if they don't put pictures of Soleimani out. That's not true because we have seen them use those tactics before, and the crowds were not this big. The crowds were never this big. The only time the crowds in Iran were this big were when Khomeini died for his funeral around 30 years ago. For 30 years, the crowds that came out for Soleimani's funeral in all the cities were insane. So
that was crazy.
And people are saying, Armin, even if the crowds were 1 million, and they say that's the highest estimate that you come up with, that's 1 million out of 81 million. Okay. Well,
come on.
If you say that, then these are the same people that look at the protests that were anti-government protests. Well, what are you going to say about that? Because those didn't even reach 100,000. They didn't even reach 10,000. So what are you going to then?
But Armin, what about the idea that this is because the thing is, these crowds came out, but there's also. I think that I was guilty of making this mistake myself too, but I think that it was probably because what you're saying is that there's a lot of people who really love Soleimani and there's some people who hate him, but there's a lot of people who really really like him. So, but is it because the idea is that it's Iran, right? So you know how Saddam Hussein always had these huge turnouts for the elections and always won by 98% of the vote. Is this something that could be orchestrated considering we're talking about Iran? That all these people come out, or do they all come out generally?
Not to this.
But the government does a campaign that you guys have to come out, everybody come out, everybody come out, and then they all come out.
But the thing is that they have done that for the past 40 years, and we've seen the size of the crowds when they do that. This size of this crowd was unimaginable. They couldn't pull off this. And and this is why.
So I was one of the people who's skeptical. So
I was skeptical too, but the number is way too high because also if you look at the people that are showing up, it's not just the religious people, and this is why it's so interesting about Soleimani. Okay, so Soleimani was obviously a very religious man, but it's very bizarre. It's very surprising to a lot of people. A lot of people that hate the government, a lot of Iranians that hate the government in Iran also hated Soleimani. But surprisingly, some people that hate the government in Iran loved Soleimani. And that seemed like a contradiction. How could you hate the government of Iran, but Soleimani you saw that as separate. Okay, and this is a battle of two separate ideologies. It's a dance between two different ideologies among the people of Iran, right? So for when I grew up in Iran, you always saw the Iranian people as the members of two camps. It was very black and white in our mind as kids, there was no like middle ground, right? This is why these new middle grounds, which I'm going to explain, seem a little bit confusing to people that are used to the two polar opposites of different groups in Iran, right? The people that were anti-government used to be like less religious or anti-religious people that they didn't have an Islamic pride or a religious pride. They had this nationalism pride. They had this Persian Empire pre-Islamic pride of what Iran was before this barbaric Arabs came and ruined Iran. They had this they have this racist tendencies as well against Arabs, but also they were very some of them very anti-Islamic, some of them not maybe anti-Islamic but definitely anti-mullah regime. So this was one camp, more nationalist, more pro-Iran, not Islam. And you had the other camp. The other camp was more Islam, less nationalism, more, some nationalism, but at least religious nationalism, not like this whole Persian Empire nationalism. Nationalism mixed with Shiism, like a Shia version of, the Iranian pride was because it was a home for Shia Islam, that kind of mentality. And these two were in conflict with each other, right? For the past 40 years. But yeah, another super. But I need.
Yeah. Let's finish what you're saying, and then I'll get to the super chat.
So, but what's happening? What the investment of some more strategic parts of this government has been to invest in the they tried investing in nationalism, not just religion, when the Iran-Iraq happened against Khomeini's wishes, because Khomeini only wanted to invest in Islam, not in Iranian nationalism. But the Iran-Iraq war made them invest a little bit in nationalism. And now recently, after Khomeini's death with Khamenei, they're playing more with nationalism, right? And using nationalism rhetoric and narratives and a little bit less on Islam. And it seemed to have worked. It seems to have touched a little bit of a soft spot on a lot of these anti-Islam people that want to see a strong Persian Empire that takes back the domain of the Persian Empire that belonged to them, take it back from the Arabs, that these lands that were taken away from by the Arabs 1400 years ago, bring it back to Iran, right? Show some dominance, show some strength, stop being this pathetic little country that is being used by all these Westerners, right? So that Persian pride seemed to be, a lot of these people saw Soleimani as this guy that was making those come true, and they were willing to look past his religious, his Shiism. Some of them even look past Khamenei's Shiism and tried to look at him more like a king rather than a religious leader. Like they tried, even some fractions even did that with Khamenei, which is weird because he's a religious leader. But they tried to do that. So this is why. If you look at it's very interesting. If you look at the map of the Shia empire that the religious people are trying to build around the Middle East, it matches perfectly with the Persian Empire, the pre-Islamic Persian Empire that the Sassanids dynasty in Iran had before the Arab invasion. And this is why the Iranian government can play two narratives at the same time. With the religious Shia, say, look, we're bringing back the Shia family together, the Shia unity, and with the less religious Persian pride nationalists, we could be like, we're putting the empire back together again. And that's the narrative that you could play with both sides at the same time. And again, with the race, you could play the racism that the nationalists have with this anti-Sunnism so the Shia people, they hate the Arab Sunnis, right? So that you could play with that, and with the nationalists, they hate the Arabs because they're racist. And again, you could play that game at the same time with both of them. And this is why, And this is why Soleimani was such a for a lot of people, even for the non-religious people, seemed like a figure to admire, right? Again, not all of them. A lot of people hate him, rightfully so, because he is a terrorist, in my opinion. We could go over why I think he was a terrorist, but a lot of even non-religious people hold him dear. And this is why the Trump tweet was such a stupid tweet. The one that said that we're going to have the 52 sites, he said cultural sites, okay? That was, I can't understand. Like, that was the dumbest, the tweet, the best,
stupidest thing.
The best.
Well, his own people walked it back, right?
Yeah, but but that was such a gift to the Iranian regime, because here's the thing: the Iranian regime wants to create some unity between all these different groups, right? They wants to bring, like, tell the people in Iran that hate the Islamic Republic, the mullahs, the Velayat Faqih regime. They want to be like, look, don't hate us, hate America instead, right? So when Trump comes and says, what is to the non-religious, Persian Empire pride people in Iran, what is sacred to them? Because it's not the Quran, it's not Islam, it's not Muhammad, it's not Ashura or Imam Hussein at the Mahdi. What is the sacred stuff to them? Is Shahnameh, is the Persepolis, is these cultural sites, is the pre-Islamic cultural sites, right? So as soon as Trump tweeted that we're going to come and hit your cultural sites, these people were like, what the hell? So it showed to them that the regime, Khamenei came and said, months before Khamenei came out, and I couldn't believe this, he said, like, this is not about religion. Our enemies are after Iran itself. And to me, that speech was amazing, because Khamenei, which is supposed to be religious supreme leader, he came out and said this is not about religion, it's about Iran's identity. So it seemed to me like he was trying to unite the non-religious people in Iran with the religious people in Iran. And people didn't believe them. Like, no, they want to come after you guys. Maybe Trump, like a lot of Iranians were like, no, Trump is going to support us against you guys. But some people believe Khamenei. And this tweet was such a gift to Khamenei and his ilk, because it proved to them, like, look, they're after the identity of Iran, not just us religious mullahs. They're after Iran's identity. And this is why so many Iranians that are Trump supporters and want Trump to come liberate him, they were desperate to... they were desperate to reinterpret the tweet by Trump to something else. Some of them were even going by cultural. He means religious cultural. Like, don't worry, Trump is just going to come and hit the religious sites, the Islamic sites. That's what he means. Like, that's good, right? Trump is going to come and get what is it called? The Islamic seminaries, the Jose Elmias. Yeah. That's what he's going to hit. That's what.
For them, the Islamic stuff is the colonialism that destroyed local ancient Persian culture.
Yes.
And they want to go back to the Persian culture. So what Trump did was he basically you brought everybody together under one of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on.
Not everybody, but it really helped a lot of people become more anti-Trump and see, like, maybe we should because the best thing to unite, to get the anti-government people to go back to supporting the government, is to create this external enemy. You're helping the mullahs sell the idea that, hey, at least we're protecting you against these crazy people, right? So why would you do that for them? Why would you do that for them? But go on.
Another weird coincidence, and again, so this is also going to go for all of you conspiracy theorists out there. Enjoy this one. There was actually an earthquake that hit one of the sites that was bombed. That Iran hit the rockets to, one of the U.S. bases. Like, over there was a 4.9 Richter scale
Why
earthquake
are you feeding
that just
conspiracy
happened.
stuff to people?
It's just a strange day, Armin. It's just, there's all this stuff. It's really weird, the stuff that's happening over there. So that actually hit there around the same time, about 2 hours ago.
Right.
So there you go. That's also interesting. A lot of people saying it's because of nuclear testing and everything. I don't know. Again, we don't have any evidence, but I think it's...
Stop it. You're fueling conspiracy.
That's for all of you guys. What? Like,
You enjoy feeding people
I
conspiracy.
am not. No,
Yeah.
I'm a psychopath.
Yeah.
That's what I am. Okay, and we have the super chat. Azad Mufakkar is saying he's from New Zealand, and he's saying on a lighter note, Ali's beard is making me hot. I just please keep on commenting. Keep on commenting. This is great. My
Yeah.
beard is making him hot. And he's also saying, how will the Democratic candidates deal with it? And I think that it's a weird thing. I think it's confusing a lot of them. I did see Elizabeth Warren, who was on The View, and she was arguing with Meghan McCain. Meghan McCain was trying to get her to admit that Soleimani was a terrorist, which to her credit she did. She said, yes, of course he was a terrorist. He was part of the IRGC, which the U.S. has designated a terrorist organization. So she said it. They're all the right thing for them. They're kind of caught in this thing where they don't want to encourage Trump's recklessness, that he's going to start another war in the Middle East, or in Iran in this case. And then on the other hand, they want to balance that with not looking weak. They also want to look tough, that yes, our embassy was attacked, and this is something that we have to retaliate against. But yeah, taking out Soleimani, he was a terrible, terrible person. He was a terrorist. He was everything. But this was not the right time and not the right way to do it. So I think that they're generally going with that approach in terms of starting a war. They're drawing parallels to when Bush started the Iraq war under false pretenses. They're saying that this is basically the outcome of that war. What good was that war when we're ending up here now in this situation? So this is the consequences of it. And now we're doing the same thing again. Trump's doing the same thing again. So I think that's their narrative. They're just like Trump is trying to get people to think again about the Iranian embassy takeover in the 70s during the revolution. The Democrats right now are trying to get their base or their people to start thinking about the Iraq war and what a terrible mistake that was, and how this is the parallels with this. So, they have their thing. Yeah, go ahead.
So just one thing I noticed is that everybody that wants to point out how bad Soleimani is, which he is, they're so tribal about it. Like if you look at American outlets, they point to the Americans that Soleimani is responsible for their killing, right? And if you look at Iranians, they point out to the Iranians that Soleimani is responsible for their killing, which is everybody is ignoring Soleimani's main crimes, which is Sunni civilians, which is way more than the Iranians that were killed, and also the poor Afghans, especially the kids that were used as child soldiers. More than 5,000 of them apparently. This crazy. Like this shows to me like people they don't seem to care about human lives. They're just so tribal about like somebody is only a terrorist if they killed so many of your people. But Soleimani was a terrorist mostly to Sunni civilians. Okay, why do Iranians and Americans don't care about Sunni civilians? Right? Those are again hashtag not all. But I'm sure there are good people on all sides. But this shows that so much tribalism exists on all sides, right? But those are the people that Soleimani harmed the most, and he is a terrorist. I keep seeing people like Khalid Kolinsky keep making excuses. They call him Soleimani peacemaker. I mean, and
did he really say? Yes, did he use that?
Yes, yes. And
no,
I'll tell you why he said. Yeah, he did. And he also said, Shias are not terrorists. The Sunnis are terrorists. You know why Khalid Kolinsky thinks that Sunnis are terrorists and Shias are not terrorists? Because the Sunnis do attack Western civilians, but Shias, they're terrorists too. They're bigger terrorists. But they only see them. They see them as.
I wouldn't say bigger.
No, let me tell you why they're bigger terrorists. But because they are mostly killing Sunnis and not Americans. So apparently they're not terrorists because Shias are not killing Americans as much as Sunnis. Do you know what I mean? Like Sunni terrorists show up in Europe and North America, but Shia terrorists usually don't show up there. So apparently they're not terrorists because they're not killing your people. But in my book, they are terrorists because they're killing civilians of other countries. Because unlike you, Khalid Kolinsky, I care about civilians not just in certain countries that I happen to be born with. I care about civilians everywhere. Soleimani was definitely a terrorist. In fact, Shia terrorist groups are bigger than Sunni terrorist groups. I can Hashd al-Shabi, Hezbollah, Kitab al-Hezbollah, there's so many. They're way more well-funded. They're way more organized. They're way more trained than any of your ISIS and Al Qaeda and all the all the other Sunni terrorist groups combined.
It's okay to talk about, and it's actually completely legitimate to talk about whether this was the right thing to do, whether it's too reckless, whether this was the right timing of it. What are the consequences for U.S.-Iraqi relations? If the severing of that happens, does it make Iran more powerful? This is there's definitely a substantive conversation over here that you can have about it. But part of that conversation, if you're trying to say that Qasem Soleimani was somehow a good guy or he's a pacemaker, that's a problem, because just because the guy is over there and he's not Western or he's not Jewish or whatever it is, just because of that, if you think that he's a great guy. I mean, especially if you're anti-Trump. I mean, this guy is basically, if you took somebody like one of these hawk conservative politicians that you really hate, like John Bolton or one of these guys, and then to remove all checks and balances and just let them do whatever they want to, and there's no other branches of government to hold them accountable. There's no democracy to hold them accountable, and they're just basically running amok. That's what the Soleimani guy was. So you can't. It's a bizarre thing to try and defend him, no matter how substantive your argument is. So
actually,
against taking
people
him
in the
out.
live chat are pointing out he didn't. He said he's on a peace mission, right? So he's more like rather saying he's a peacemaker. But he keeps saying that in every video. Oh, he was on a peace mission. He was on a peace mission, as if Soleimani. As if that's something positive about Soleimani. I'll tell you what he means by he was on a peace mission. But again, Kyle Kulinski thinks that Sunnis are terrorists, Shias are not terrorists. That's absolutely ridiculous. If you care about all human lives, not just American lives, then Shias are absolutely terrorists. And also, David Pacman was saying that...
not all Shias, just Shias are also involved in terrorism.
Yes. David Pacman was saying, these were Iraqis, not Iran. So this was not an action by Iran. That's absolutely... I can't believe... It's very interesting because it's good that I see them making such blunders like this, because it makes me scared, because these are my left-wing sources of news. So when they start talking about something that I know about and I see how many mistakes they make, it makes me skeptical about when they talk about stuff that I don't know more about. Like, oh my God, they might be making all mistakes on those things as well, because I know they're making a mistake here. Anyways, so the thing is, David Pacman Kyle Kulinski was saying that Soleimani was on a peace mission was because apparently there's some reports that he went to Baghdad, he was in Baghdad to meet with some Saudi people because Saudi was interested in starting to talk with Iran, to be more friendly with Iran. And the problem with that is that you cannot describe that as a peace mission. That's a submission mission. Because what happened was they attacked Saudi Arabia, Aramco, which again, I have no sympathy for Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia was coward. They are doing an IPO at Aramco, and Saudi Arabia realized how vulnerable they are, and that was like a very small attack. Iran's government just signaled to Saudi Arabia that we could wipe you out, like we could destroy your economy, like all the defense that you bought from United States, all the billions of dollars, they didn't stop a few of our drones. Think about what we can do against all your oil assets if we just went all out on you. And Saudi Arabia, this is why Saudi Arabia changed its narrative overnight. They're like, okay, because they were begging United States to go to war with Iran. Now they're begging them not to go to war with Iran because they saw how vulnerable they are. And now they're like, okay, we're going to talk to Iran. So this was not the peace, the so-called peace that the IRGC is interested in is submission, is is surrender, right? Because I can tell you, IRGC is not interested in peace. The only peace that they would be interested in is a peace that comes with total domination of the Middle East. But even then they're not going to be satisfied with peace, because after the Middle East, what is the next goal? It's Israel. They're never going to stop until Israel falls. What is the Quds? So the branch of
the Quds army,
the Quds army. What does Quds mean? What is the branch of the IRGC that Soleimani is the leader, the head of? Is called the Quds. Quds means what? Quds means Jerusalem. Quds means Jerusalem, because their group is named after their final destination. That's what the whole goal of the IRGC, the whole goal of the Quds army is to take the Middle East, and then eventually the final victory is to take down Israel. So to say that he was on a peace mission, there is no peace mission. The goal is to take down Israel. That's their final mission. Any form of peace that they're interested in is domination and submission of everybody until they completely dominate the Middle East, including Israel. That is the peace that they're interested in.
So and the thing is,
yeah,
the Saudi Arabia point is really, was a lot of people saying Saudi Arabia would be celebrating this, but you're actually, this is a really strong point. Aramco, which Iran attacked, right? Aramco, when they did the IPO, for a brief period, Aramco became the very first $2 trillion company in the world. Okay, so you have $1 trillion companies like Amazon and Apple. Aramco was actually $2 trillion. It was worth $2 trillion at one point. So it's a very, very important asset for them. There's a couple of more things. So
they're cash. Saudi Arabia needs cash. Yeah, they're desperate.
Iran is now threatened. Yeah, Iran has now threatened to attack inside America if the U.S. responds to the missile attacks.
Yes,
that's one thing.
Yeah, but
yeah.
But it's very interesting.
The other update.
Can I just say
I
something?
think this one's on. Yeah, another thing I just want to add to this. Another thing, this is an update from CNN. They're saying that South Korea is closely monitoring the situation as well, and they're looking for the safety of South Korea.
Every country is monitoring this. I was even saying the Philippines is monitoring this. It was like I saw on Philippine news yesterday, how is the U.S. Iran tensions going to affect the Philippines? I was like, what? Like every country is looking at this. Ali, are you there? Your image is frozen. Ali? Do you guys have me? Or is it Ali is gone or everybody's gone? Let me know if you have my audio. Somebody. Beej. I think we got lost Ali's audio. Is it me or is it Ali as well? I think it's just that. Somebody in the live chat tell me if you have my audio. Because I don't have Ali's audio. I want to know if at least I'm on. Anyways, ask me some. Ali might be gone. Okay, B just saying Ali might be gone, but am I good? Ask me some questions so I can answer you. Only Ali is gone. Okay, Ali is gone. You're here. He's gone. Okay, good. At least I'm here. At least the whole thing is not gone. Ali, if you can hear me, please disconnect and come back again. So here's the thing, though. While we see if Ali is going to come back soon or not. Ali needs to get better internet. I keep telling him. I'm in a third world country right now, and Ali is in a first world country. I don't understand how I'm getting so much better internet than he is. But okay, so what I was going to point out was that Iran's government seems to be doing something that they accuse Trump of doing. Okay,
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. But let me just make this point.
Yeah,
okay,
let me just make this point. Yeah, I got cut out.
Let me just make this point. Iranian government was always saying like, "Oh, Trump make these big threats, but he never follows it up by an action." Okay, he followed it up. He killed Soleimani. That was action. That was definitely action, right? But now, if you look at what Iran's government is doing, which they are forced to do, is that they are attacking the United States base. They warn them to get their soldiers out, and they're beating their chest and like, oh, look at us, we're strong. We're going to come attack Dubai, attack Saudi Arabia, attack any country that allows the United States to use their bases to attack Iran. We're going to attack Israel, Tel Aviv, Haifa. If United States attack us, we're going to attack United States on their own soil. These are all the threats that are coming out of Iran. But they attacked an empty base with no U.S. soldiers. So now it looks a bit pathetic from Iran's government side, because they're like, oh, where's the big revenge that is coming from Soleimani? And they attack this base with no U.S. soldiers in it, right? But it looks very pathetic, but honestly, it's better than them attacking a base. It would have been more dumb if they attacked with a base with soldiers in it, right? That would have looked stronger, but it also would have been suicidal. I honestly think the best play would have been to say that we don't need to take military action because United States just took themselves out of Iraq. That should have been their play. That should have been like we moved. The goal of the Islamic Republic of Iran is to remove United States out of our neighborhood, to get them all go home. And look, they did it to themselves. That should have been they made themselves take their revenge for us, right? That should have been their play, because this this attack on a base with no soldiers in it looks pathetic. But it would have not satisfied people in Iran, the people that loved Soleimani. They wanted revenge. I was listening to a lot of the people that showed at the funeral. They kept on asking, when is the revenge coming? When is the revenge coming? They wanted blood, right? So if another problem with Iran's government right now, to all these people that love Soleimani, is that if they do something military, they were saying, we don't want just like something legal, something that, we're going to not, the parliament in Iraq is going to draft a bill and they're going to remove the military out of Iraq. They're like, no, we want military action. So all these interviews kind of forced Iran's government to satisfy these people somehow. But I don't know if they're going to be satisfied, because it looks pretty weak if the news is solid that they warn the United States. Then the pro-Soleimani Iranian people are going to be like, what the hell? Why did we warn them, right? Why did we warn them? They took our number 2, and you can't even take low-level soldiers. Like, they're gonna demand blood, all right? So I don't know how this is going to play out. How are they? But the Iranian government is just like Trump was in a huge dilemma, how to look strong, how to show to his base that he's strong, without escalating things to a full-out war. Now the Iranian regime is in the exact same dilemma. All these people in Iran that want revenge, they want blood, they want a military action. How could we show them that we're strong? How could we satisfy them? Because this is our base. I mean, the people that hate us, they hate us. At least these are people that love us, that love Soleimani. We can't lose these people, or else nobody likes us. So how could we satisfy them, but also not escalate to a full-out war? This is the dilemma that both Trump and the Islamic Republic is facing at the same time. And it's so hard to play this game. It's so hard. Like, how could they say, like, they're secretly telling each other, please don't retaliate too hard. Please let me have something to give. Give me something that I could hit on your side, so I could satisfy these people on my side, while you also shut up. They both want something to the other side, to give them something that is strong, but also something that they could finally say, we've done enough. We don't need to go retaliate even more. That's what I think. So all these people that are saying Trump wants war, I think they're completely wrong. And, I think they both want, but it's really hard to play this game, because the problem is that both sides, even though the top officials don't want a full-out war, there are people under them that want a war. There are some neocons around Trump, and these lobbyists and these people that sell weapons around Trump, that they want a full-out war. And there are also people around the main top figures in Iran that want a war. And they know that this is such a delicate balance to play, and they're thinking that while Iran's government and Trump is playing this dance, if somebody makes a mistake, and if they could force their government to be like, no, this was not enough, push it a little bit more, they know that they could just push them to a full-on collision, right? So because they're so close, they're just trying to push them all the way in. And that's why this is why one small mistake or one small misreading of what the other side's intention is could trigger a full-on collision. And that's why it's so dangerous. Even though both sides don't want a full-on war, it's such a hard dance to play, to come close but not go all the way, and not let these people behind you push you all the way into a full-out war. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of what you're saying today, Armin, makes sense. I just today.
Okay.
This is someone was asking. I think the super chat, the New Zealand one. They were asking about how the Democrats plan to play this, and this is a tweet from Nancy Pelosi. She's saying, "We're closely monitoring the situation following bombings targeting U.S. troops in Iraq. We must ensure the safety of our service members, including ending needless provocations from the administration and demanding that Iran cease its violence. America and world cannot afford war." So yeah, that's also another thing that they're saying, that you take our rules of engagement, you follow, and then if this is something that is truly needless and is being done because of everybody's egos, and you're going to send American soldiers there. I mean, this is the one of the positions of the Democrats is going to be, you're sending American soldiers there. They're going to go there. They're going to get their hands and feet and their body parts blown off. Many of them are going to die in this situation of the war, just like thousands and thousands of them died in Iraq. And the truth is they all kind of died in vain.
Right.
That was really a war that was a complete waste. It was a complete waste of lives. If anybody who fought in Iraq and was injured and everything, I mean, that happened for absolutely no reason. It's a terrible thing to say, but unfortunately it's true. So the Democrats will probably take that position, and that's another angle that they're going to go with.
By the way, just to make sure that I'm not defending Trump too much, for people that think that maybe I'm making excuses for Trump.
No, nobody's defending Trump. Everybody knows neither of us are
people
Trump fans.
Trust me, I know people that come after me after these shows.
It doesn't matter what they say.
Let me just tell you something so that they can't say anything. None of this would have happened if Trump didn't pull out of that deal. None of this would have happened. None of this would have happened if the nuclear deal was still on the table, right? So,
yeah, I know. Yeah. So here's the thing. So this threat about attacking inside America if the U.S. responds to the missile attacks. So we've talked about whether there's going to be a war or not, seeming from this like super crazy, super optimistic tweet from Trump, which is very uncharacteristic of him, right? Like it all is well, everything's great, everything's going. I mean, that's what he said. And I'm going to make a statement in the morning. Nobody died, and. So he's doing this in response to attacks by Iran on U.S. military bases in Iraq, and this amazing sense. Kind of optimism.
The tweet makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
You know why it makes sense?
It makes sense, but yeah.
Can I tell you why?
Yeah, sure.
Because look, both Zarif's tweet. The Zarif tweeted that we conclude this.
Yeah, we're concluding this.
So both
the
Zarif tweet, which is the foreign minister of Iran, and Trump's
de-escalation, yeah.
Both of them make sense, because Zarif is like, we conclude our responses, because Zarif is trying to be like, we're not going to do anything else. So it's a signal to United States, like, don't re-escalate this, because we're ending this here. And also Trump's tweet also makes sense right now, because he's saying all is well, because he's trying to say, like, it wasn't that big of an attack, so we don't need to respond. I think it might seem...
Nobody died.
It seems like both sides are trying to say, like, let's end it here. We don't need to go any further. I think this might be a sign from both sides.
That's what I'm looking at. That's what it seems like to me, and I think that's what it seems like to most people. To me, I think that's what it is. But now this new threat, this threat to attack inside the U.S. if the U.S. responds, is that something that is going to? I mean, they've done that threat. Is that something Trump's going to take him up on? I think that he's going to get out of it. He's going to do that speech tomorrow, and he'll be like, we did this.
This is why Trump was supposed. I think Trump was supposed to make a speech tonight, but then they stopped.
But he didn't.
Yeah, I think it might have been. Hey, what Mir is saying? Hey, my super chat. Okay, Mir? Stop typing the same thing.
What's your super chat? Sorry, I missed it.
We read it.
Mir Jalal.
We read it.
Yeah, we already read it.
We read it a long time ago.
We talked about your super chat, and thank you for the compliment about my beard. That's
Yeah,
really nice. I've been working on it.
Yeah,
it's great. It allows me to change the name of my face, the shape of my face.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
We did read it, Mirjala. We promise. Maybe you missed it. Maybe I don't know. Thank you, Beach, for modding, though. Guys, don't keep typing the same comment over and over again. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay, I think it's good here. Let's. We should. And if you have any last questions in the live chat, I'm gonna look at the Facebook live chat.
Yeah. Let me just check. There are a couple of questions, so let me just let's take a couple of questions.
And also the tweet that I posted I'm going to bring up that tweet to see if there was any questions under that, because I asked people if they have any questions. Let me bring that up.
Yeah, a lot of people actually in the live chat are asking about that plane crash.
No,
Ukrainian airplane crash in Iran. Oh, people are asking about it. It crashed in Tehran. The question is, who said this? Like, did Iran bring down a plane?
No.
Avinash is asking.
We don't know. Guys, please,
we don't know.
We don't know.
And probably
not.
I know it's a very, very juicy coincidence, but I sound like a psychopath. I'm such an asshole. It's terrible. I shouldn't be doing that.
Why did you say that? Now this whole video is going to get completely limited views.
You can't say asshole?
No, stop saying that. Now it's worse if you say it multiple times.
Oh, God.
All right, let me read some of the questions because I asked a few on January 3rd what questions people have. Somebody has asked, how do Iranian citizens feel about the assassination? Is this good news for the Kurds in Iran? So the Iranian people... The Iranian citizens, you cannot say... Okay, if anybody tells you that this is what the Iranian people think, tell them to shut the F up, because don't make such generalized claims on behalf of such large group of people, okay? Iranian citizens don't feel any specific thing about any of this, because for any opinion that you think of, you can find it, all right? And also... especially in Iran, if anybody says, "Oh, most people think this, most people think that," that is even more nonsense compared to other countries. But given that there's less reliable polls in Iran compared to other countries, because you really can't get people's opinions. Everybody. What I could tell you that almost every side tries to make it seem like they're the majority, like the people Iranians that are happy, that are dancing in the streets that Soleimani was killed, that are celebrating. I've seen parties, I see people dancing, I see people singing. They're celebrating the fact that Soleimani was killed. Those people will say that they're the majority. They don't know that. They're just saying that because they want to be the majority. And also the people that are in the streets for the funerals of Soleimani, they're saying that this was a loss. They lost their protector, they lost their guardian, and all that nonsense. Those people are also claim to be the majority, but they are not the majority. They don't know if they're the majority because Mir Jalal is saying he has sent us 2 super chats. Can you check what the other super chat was?
I'm sorry, Mir Jalal. I think I missed the other one.
Mir Jalal,
I'm not actually. I don't know if I missed it.
Can you just retype your question? I'll read it, Mir Jalal.
Just retype the question. Yeah,
retype it. I'll read it even if it's not.
And thank you.
Thank you again for the super chat. Yes. Okay. So next question is, let me see. How do you see things affecting the whole Middle East? Is there any chance for stability in the Middle East? Is there any chance for Iran and its people? How much destruction is the U.S. capable of causing? Can you see any peaceful solution? Whoa, this question, they want us to... Okay, so that's how many episodes do we need to answer this question? That's
make all your predictions. Tell us the future of the Middle East.
It's good. All right. I can't... Okay, so we're going to keep having some episodes on this topic. So that's a whole bunch of questions. That's just like 10 episodes right there. So... we'll respond to those in future episodes.
There's a question I wanted to kind of address from Azad and Fakir again. Is what do we expect as a reaction from the rest of the Muslim world, e.g., Pakistan, UAE, etc.? I have noticed something, and I'm going to say this as someone of Pakistani background who's Shia, who grew up surrounded by a lot of Khomeini pictures because he was a hero to a lot of my extended family, relatives, and things like that. That people were very, very supportive of the Iranian Revolution. They idealized it. A lot of them do have their Shia blinders on.
Yeah.
So many of them, they do think of Soleimani as a good guy. Even the ones that don't, they don't think he was a good guy. They don't think that, they think he was fighting against the U.S. And they look at what the U.S. has done around the world, and what the U.S. is, basically is equivalent to that. They're like, they took out a military general in Iran. That's really no different. I mean, shouldn't we take out the military generals who were involved in the U.S.'s war on Yemen? And so they think of it as the same way. So they don't see it very differently. And
Can I read?
there is a strange thing. A lot of them also support Assad and pretty much everything associated with Iran. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's much objectivity there.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily
Actually, I think
call things out.
Mir
Yeah.
Jalal, he sent me his question on Facebook because he was timed out on YouTube. Let me just read his question. Mir Jalal is saying the left's hypocrisy is disgusting. They maul Trump over Yemen, yet don't speak a word on Iran's crime in Syria. Iran has got a free card because it's killing terrorists. Remember the children of Syria when you cry about Qasem. Yes, exactly. A lot of the people that are against United States imperialism, they make excuses for the Islamic Republic's imperialism in the Middle East. This guy was, a lot of people make excuses. This is exactly what Kyle Kulinski was saying also at Secular Talk. He was like, oh, this guy was a U.S. ally. He defeated ISIS. He was against ISIS. He was on our side. He didn't just kill ISIS, okay? He killed Sunni civilians, okay, for the accusation of being ISIS, okay? Just because somebody kills ISIS, he was very successful at defeating ISIS. I give him that. But you know who else killed ISIS members? You know who else fight ISIS? You know who else? Assad and Al Qaeda. Are you guys now pro Al Qaeda because they attacked ISIS, huh? Al Qaeda was against ISIS. Are you guys now pro Al Qaeda because they attacked ISIS? No. Just because another terrorist group is against one terrorist group, you don't become pro that one of them. You're against both of them.
Yeah.
But
there's this idea. I mean, people say, well, Saudi Arabia is celebrating, and all the Sunni jihadists are very happy that the U.S. took out Soleimani. Of course, the Sunni jihadists are going to be very happy that the U.S. took out Soleimani. That doesn't make Soleimani a good guy. It doesn't make the Sunni jihadists it doesn't mean that anybody's aligned with the Sunni jihadists. It doesn't work that way. The Middle East is not one of those places where you can take sides
right.
With different things, because there's a lot of factions fighting a lot of different factions, and there's the enemy of my enemy is not my friend is not the kind of thing that you can apply in any kind of Middle East geopolitics.
You know, let me say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of these people are always asking, why is America there? What is American soldiers doing there? Which is a legitimate question. But you know what? They never ask, what are Iranian soldiers doing there? Iraq is not the United States. The United States has no business being in Iraq. But why don't you ask the same question? Why don't you be consistent and ask, well, Iraq is also not Iran. What is Iranian soldiers? Why are Iranian influences doing there? Why are you asking for United States to get out, but you're not asking for Iranian imperialist groups to get out? Exactly. You know, why are you not being consistent with your values? And again, one thing I could tell you is that as bad as no, I'm not going to say that.
No, say it now.
I'm not going to say it. Go on.
Come on.
No, it was wrong.
You can add a disclaimer.
No, it's wrong. I changed my mind in mere seconds, so that's why I'm not going to say it.
Wow. Okay, so Armin can change his mind. That's great. And actually, he can. I know that. Yeah. So here's Sayyid Ali is asking, was it not good to remove Saddam? So this is actually, I think this is a really good question because it gets to the heart of whether it was good to take out Soleimani or not. Because, so Saddam, for instance, terrible man, Iraq. The whole idea was that Saddam was a terrible man. He did terrible things to his own people, to Iraqis. He did terrible things to everybody else. So he was a complete tyrant. And it's good that he's gone. Nobody's going to lose any sleep that Saddam's gone. But what happened after Saddam was removed? After Saddam was removed, there was, people talk about the hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths in Iraq during the Iraq War. Most of those deaths were actually because of sectarian violence. So yes, the U.S. did a lot of damage in Iraq. It contributed to it by the whole bringing down Saddam and everything. And yes, you had an election and you had a Shia government that came around, and you know, that had consequences. It made Iran stronger and everything like that. But it also plunged Iraq into a lot of problems after Saddam was removed. So the rise of ISIS, for instance, the growth of Iranian influence in Iraq, which we're seeing the manifestations of now, and the infighting, the Shia Sunni sectarian violence, the Kurdish, like all of these factions fighting together, which was actually what resulted in the majority of the civilian deaths in Iraq during the Iraq War and the invasion by the U.S. So, the conclusion, like, what's the inference you make of this? That yes, it's a good thing that Saddam is gone, but it's very important the way that you do it. You have to have a strategy. You can't just have a tactic. You can't just go in and do something. You have to have a strategy. You have to think about what the aftermath is going to be. Right? It's very famously, George Bush did not know the difference between Shias and Sunnis when the Iraq War happened. Okay, he actually did not know. He was asking about it. He's like, oh, the Shia Sunni, tell me about this. He didn't know, and he was the president of the United States. You can't go in and do things like that in the Middle East without knowing these things. Was there a way to have a regime change strategy? Yes, there probably was, but it should have been thought out. It should have been talked about. The aftermath should have been thought about. These are all very, very important things. And the same thing applies now, right? The same thing applies now. Nobody's arguing. Nobody's going to lose any sleep that Soleimani is dead. The problem is what happens afterwards. Has anybody planned for it?
I haven't seen a foreign-led regime change that has went well since World War II. Has there any been any? The only one that went okay was removing Hitler by with the support of Americans. But has there been any other good examples ever since? I don't know. But Chris, if you can think of another good example since World War II.
that was definitely, it was a regime change. It was basically it wasn't. It was in response to like a very, very aggressive kind of.
I know, but I'm just saying that was the time that the United States was seen as like a savior of the world because they came out and helped. But ever since then, Vietnam, I don't know, everywhere else, Cambodia, Iraq, it's been like disaster after disaster. So has there been any other good examples ever since then? But Chris is saying. It was recently, Chris. We already responded to that. We don't think a war. I think it's still not likely that there's going to be a war unless the people that want a war manage to figure out how to create some confusion.
As of right now, because you might be listening to this while there's a war going on, and you'd be like, "Oh, what?" But as of right now, as of the time that we are recording this, right. Both Jawad Zarif has said that we have concluded this thing by responding with the 2 missiles. Apparently, it seems that they warned the U.S. about it before. Okay, and the U.S. was able to clear out all of the people from those 2 bases, so nobody died in the war. And then Trump replied with his tweet saying all is well. So it seems like they're both willing to de-escalate. Yes. So it probably won't be a war, but honestly. Who knows? By the time you're listening to this,
we forgot Celestial Nightshade question right at the top, and she already had to do another super chat to remind.
I asked her.
So sorry. No, that question was like
what was it?
The Israel and Dubai question. But let me go all the way to the top. So sorry. She gave us another super chat to remind us that she asked a question.
Yeah, yes, I'm really sorry about today. We've got a lot of people on the stream.
The question is, how would the Middle East respond if Iran attacked Dubai and Israel? Oh, I mean, that's such a chaotic situation. I honestly, if Middle East, give me a country name. Like I can't. Okay, which countries are you talking about? Are you talking about Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates? Are you talking about Egypt? Well, Egypt is in North Africa. But are you talking about like who else? You're talking about Israel itself. Like which countries? Like it really depends on which country you're talking about. And for me, because we could go through down the list, and each one, how would they respond? Each one of it could be its own episode, right? So, I mean, if Iran attacked Dubai, okay, and again, if they attack Dubai and not Israel, that would be a different answer. If they attack Israel and not Dubai, that would be a different answer. And if they attack Israel and Dubai at the same time, that would be a different answer. And again, depends on which country you're talking about. So there's so many multiple scenarios. You need to be a bit more specific. But I can tell you that it will create a lot more unity between countries against Iran. Okay? So, for example, right now, United States is taking position against... Hey, my camera went out of focus. Come on, fix. So, United States is taking position against Iran's interest without the backing of either Arabs or Europeans, which is very bizarre because the United States has gone through stages, like sometimes it has European backing, and then not Europeans have, looked at the United States like, what the hell you're doing, ever since Trump backed up the Iran deal. But it had the support of, weirdly, both Israelis and Arabs against the strong positions that the United States was taking against Iran. It had more backing by the Arabs than Israel, and not the backing of Europeans. But now recently, because of the fear of the Arabs, Gulf Arabs, and also the fear of Israel, I think, maybe they changed their mind of wanting a full-out war. So this position of United States against Soleimani, the killing of Soleimani, comes with neither the backing of Europeans or the backing of the Arabs. So United States seems very lonely in this. It's very lonelier than it has been for a very, very long time. So, but if Iran attacks United Arab Emirates or Israel, then that will reunite the international community behind United States against Iran's government, right? So that's what it would do. And that's why it would be a very strategically dumb thing for Iran to do. But I don't think they would do it. I think this is just like empty threats. I could be wrong. They could be forced into that position by neocons or like other people to, again, push. Again, you might be listening to this while we're in a full-out war, listening to this and be like, oh, Armin was actually wrong. But I'm leaving the possibility that somebody makes some stupid decision or makes some misreading or miscalculation. Again, it is when you're on such a thin rope trying to balance this, it's very easy to be tipped over to one side. So I don't think anybody has this is anyone's agenda. The main decision makers have this agenda, but the people that do have an agenda for war, they might be able to take advantage of this chaos right now. Alex is saying Armin actually has knowledge of these issues. Ali sees the world as... No, guys, Ali is pretty good. As a 2D cartoon where Dubai can't tell the difference between Sunnis.
As a 2D cartoon where W can't tell the difference between Sunni and Shia. Actually, that was a very credible report. This was actually a widely known report from that time.
Yeah.
This isn't me speaking. This was from the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and they'd actually outlined a conversation that he'd had where he'd asked his, his staff and everything, someone in his cabinet, to explain to him the differences between Shias and Sunnis. Now the thing is whether all of that was false or fake news is another thing, but it's pretty widely accepted and widely reported thing from back then. I think some of you guys may be a little younger than I am. Some of you, some of you.
Yuval, who's Israeli, is saying that Israel won't hold punches if attacked by Iran or its proxies. Israeli commander-in-chief already said Israelis should brace for the worst war Israel has gone through. Yeah, I mean, of course, if Israel is attacked by Iran's military, it would be very unexpected for Israel to hold back, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, any country almost would. Yeah. Shirazi.
So let's take one more question and then we gotta wrap up.
The person in the live chat, when they're asking about the Shirazi position, are you talking about the the Shirazi mullahs in the United Kingdom, which are against the Velayat Faqih? Are you talking about those kind of Shirazis? Which Shirazi are you specifically talking about? Okay, take one more question, Ali.
Yeah, so one more question is, may I know during the U.S. Isum Chi Kiat Yong May I know during the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 why some Shia were against the U.S. Army while some supported it? Why is there a split within the Iraqi Shia communities? So, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Do you want to take that?
So again, there's many different philosophies here, right? So there's different reasons to stop. Okay, so if you're a Shia in Iraq, right? Why are some of the reasons why you would be against United States in Iraq, and what are some of the reasons why you would be for United States in Iraq? The reasons why you would be against it are like, get out of my country, submiddling. This is Iraq. Why are foreigners in general? Why are all foreigners here? Why can't we just elect our own government and run our own country? This is why you would be one reason why you would be against it as a Shia in Iraq. Another reason why you might be against the United States in Iraq as a Shia is not that you're against all forms of foreign intervention. You might be one of those Iranian supporters, one of those Shias that supports the Vilayat Faqih back in Iran. And you could be like for Iranian intervention, and that's why you would be against all things American, whether it's in Iraq or anywhere else, right? So that's the second reason why you might be against United States in Iraq. As a Shia, why you would be for United States in Iraq? Maybe because of security reasons. You think that your Iraq's military is not yet equipped to defend Iraqi civilians against ISIS. And you might think that Iran's is either not capable, or Iran protecting Iraqis against ISIS will flame sectarian divisions. So you think that the United States needs to be there to protect you Shias against ISIS because you're not there yet. You need help. What else? What other reason you might have? Oh, another reason why you might be for United States being in Iraq is because even if you might be a Shia that is not for the Vilayat Faqih version of Shia Islam. You're not for, even though you're Shia, maybe you're not interested in Iran dominating the politics of Iraq. So you think that you might need United States in Iraq as a balancing against the influence of Iraq. So I'm not saying any of these reasons are good or bad. I'm just saying these are the possible scenarios why you might be for United States being in Iraq.
It was kind of interesting because I think that there is also an element, the broader thing of nationalism versus religious solidarity. So there's the Shia story here, and there's also the Iraqi versus Irani story. So interestingly, when the Iraq War happened, you had Muqtada al-Sadr's army, the Al-Mahdi. Was it the Al-Mahdi army that he named it? Muqtada al-Sadr.
Yeah, Mahdi army. Yes.
Yeah. So Mahdi army. So he had done this, and he was actually he was pressing back against the U.S. And then on the other hand, Sistani, who was one of the sort of also an Ayatollah. He's an Iranian guy. He lives in Iraq. He was actually pretty calm. He didn't really comment a whole lot. He didn't really talk a whole lot. And there are some reports that he was actually working with the Americans in some cases and helping out. So one of the reasons that some Shias, and I remember talking to Shias who were very happy. They're like, this is great. Saddam's going to go. Iraq is 65-70% Shia. They're going to elect a Shia government. The Shia is going to come back in power. And next thing you know, Iraq and Iran have an alliance, and the Shia is going to have a much stronger thing in the Middle East. So
let me add
there was some ambivalence there, but
about Sistani and al-Sadr. By the way, can you hear the knocking? There's some construction going on. Is it bad?
Yeah, it's not that loud. It's fine. I don't think anybody cares. No.
Okay, so
it could be a missile.
Yeah. So here's okay. Hold on. Let me just say, Sistani and al-Sadr. These two, these Shia leaders in Iraq are seen usually as competitors because these are not Vilayat Faqih version of Shia Islam. These are seen as competitor Shia sources of influence to the Vilayat Faqih back in Tehran, right? So a lot of times they are sometimes working with each other, with Iranians, and sometimes they're against each other, and keeps going back and forth. But the problem with United States taking out, Shia militias in Iraq is that it forces, because the Shias become so defensive against Americans taking out Shia positions, is that it forces. It might, some people argue that it might forces these other major sources of influence in Iraq to be backing militias, like to be supportive of Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, because that's such a popular thing at that time to say. Because here's this is another thing that Iran benefits from this whole situation. All the attention from the protests in Iran has been now taken away to all of this. This Iran could really benefit a little to show a little bit of a unity, and not just between the Iranian people to support the government, to create that illusion that there's some unity because of all the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people they came out to for the funeral of Soleimani, but also to show some unity in the Middle East, at least among the Shias, right? So this really helps them, especially at this time that the protests showed so much division in Iran, and people are like, oh, look, the Iranian people want to topple the government. But now they're like, look, we have more people actually coming out on our side. We have bigger crowds than the protests coming out on our side. And it's very interesting because these Shia, the Sistanis and Sadrs of the world, when after the protests in Iran, they came out against the Velayat Faqih, and they were like, maybe don't stop mistreating your people, right? So those protests was helping create divisions, move opinions away from the Islamic government. But now these attacks on Soleimani is helping the Islamic Republic force people to have messages of unity with Islamic Republic. So they are trying to cash in as much as possible, because this illusion of unity is not going to last long. But it's very impressive if you look at the number of people that are out there in the street, and if you look at all the messages of unity to Iran from all these Shia sources, and even some Sunni and even some Christian sources I've seen, in Lebanon and weirdly. This looks very impressive, but it's not going to last long, because the underlying sectarian divisions between Sunnis and Shias, and the non-Velayat Faqih Shias versus Velayat Faqih Shias, and the underlying economic problems that people have in Iran is going to come. These PR strategies are not going to make those go away. You're not going to PR and demonstrations in the street is good. It's good show. But it's not going to put bread, it's not going to put food on the table for Iranian people. Those are going to still be a problem that you need to solve. By the way, with regards to the question about the Shirazi Imam, which are not Velayat Faqih, honestly, the question you're asking, I don't know what the answer to that is, because I don't know. Whenever the Shirazi Imams speak, it's mostly against the Velayat Faqih in Iran. I haven't paid attention to their position on the U.S. or any other country, because most of their positions that get attention is their position against Velayat Faqih people. So I don't know the answer to that question. That's a good question. Anyways, Ali.
Right. So anyway, we're going to wrap up. I want to read this, the comment from RPG Gamer Guy saying, I think Armin and Ali should start a secular jihadist news hour. One of the reasons I watch this podcast is because they're both completely unbiased and report only the facts as it should be. I really, really appreciate that, but I don't think we'd say we're completely unbhersed. I think everybody has their own biases.
We try to be unbiased, but it's
we try to talk about it.
Part of here's a trick actually. Part of trying to be unbiased is knowing that you will fail, right? Because knowing that you are going to always have some bias will make you conscious to try harder, to know that there's always some bias there, and you always try to notice your bias. Because if you think you have no bias, then you're failing at recognizing your biases, right? In fact, sometimes the biases that you can't get rid of, at least be transparent about those biases, because it's impossible to be unbiased. Like, for example, some biases that I know I can't get rid of is my anti-Islam bias, right? So I know I can't get rid of that bias. So at least what I'm going to do, instead of getting rid of that bias, is to tell you that I have that bias and be transparent about that bias.
Yeah. So anyway, well said. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up now, and this is not going to be the first live stream about this. We're probably going to do, we're going to talk about this a lot. So, in this case, again, I just want to repeat, Armin
Azad is saying, Azad is saying, get on that Patreon, goddammit. Yes, people, please support this show. We're doing a lot of work. It goes a lot. The work that we put in this show, is not just what you see coming live. It's a lot of reading, researching, there's a lot of
and we have a whole team that's also
we have
working
people
on getting
that are
this stuff out
that
there.
are editing, cutting the videos in small little pieces. We have to pay them. Please help us support this show. The link is in the description. Become a patron today. Thank you. I always forget to plug the show, but I'm grateful that Azad is in the live chat to remind us. He or she is saying, get on that Patreon, goddammit. Like, yes, please, guys, support this show.
That's for the link. The link is
the link. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's a patreon.com/sjme. So if you go there, there's a lot of choices. What you can do is you can pay per episode. You can cap it to this $1 a month if you want to. I mean, it's whatever you want to give. And if you can't financially support the show, again, that's perfectly fine. Share what we do on your social media, on your Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
If you can't support us financially, share, because
and give us reviews on iTunes.
Yeah, reviews on iTunes because Facebook and YouTube don't like the topics that we cover. It's very so they don't recommend us. They don't let our channels grow. The algorithms have completely changed against us. So all the other channels that grew, they did it before these algorithm changes. So we are the major disadvantage here. So please. We rely, because we don't have the algorithm on our side, we rely on you guys sharing our shows. So please, if you cannot support us financially, please share our videos, and we're grateful.
Right. There's also requests from Mars for more Q&A episodes. So I think we could do that. I don't know what. Let us know if we should do maybe one Q&A episode a month, or once every 2 months, whatever you think. We should do it. We'd be happy to do that. I think that was a lot of fun, and a lot of you really enjoyed it too. I think we had a lot of questions. It was actually a really, really good episode. The time totally flew by. But yeah, this is a very important topic. I want to stress again that everybody follow Armin Navabi. It's especially on Twitter. It's Armin Navabi, and it's his name. That's his handle. Well. He's got a lot of really, really good perspectives on Iran. A lot of people who want to know about what's happening in Iran actually follow him for it. And he has direct contacts in Iran that he gets content from. He gets videos and everything from that he posts and he shares.
Or just watch Secular Jihadists. I also, whenever there's an important subscribe to our channel, YouTube channel.
Yeah, subscribe to our channel and you'll get that as well.
Yeah.
So make sure you do that. Anyway, Armin, thank you for this. This was now I know, I think, everything to know about this. We're going to be following this. If anything else happens, I'll let you know.
Yeah, we might have to do, if this escalates, we might have to do more live streams on this.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah. And it'll be a lot of fun. I'll be looking forward to it.
Beej is awesome. Beej, you're awesome.
All right, guys. Okay, till next time. And Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Bye.
What a great start. Okay, bye.